Hi again. This is the fourth section of this little tutorial set, and what we're going to look at now is how we deal with setting up a layout. Okay, you can see on screen here that the drawing has done an auto save to d:\CAD recover. Let's have a look in the folders and see where that file's sitting now. Okay, so he's not in the folder with the drawings. Okay, he's in CAD recover. So there's the file there, this $SV file. Okay, for some reason the undo and redo don't seem to have any kilobytes in them. If I refresh that, still nothing, which is pretty strange, because I can undo and redo. Maybe it's just so little that it's not even recording it. Okay, now this file would stay there until I click save. So let's see what's happening back in the course folder. Okay, so the .BAK drawing is hanging back now. He's not as up to date as the DWG. So this is where saving which should update things. So go back to the drawing. I'm just going to hit save twice. Okay, then have another look at those folders. Okay, in CAD recover, the $SV file's gone. He's no longer needed because the backup file is now up to date. So looking with the rest of the drawings, and we can see that the BAK and the DWG are both the same size. Okay, and that's why the $SV file disappeared, because he's got a proper backup file that's exactly the same size. He's not needed. Okay, right, layouts and plotting. Now this is probably the most complicated part of using AutoCAD. But once you get used to how to do this, it's quite logical, it's very methodical, and relatively easy. But the explanation of it is quite tricky, and that's where a lot of books fall down, that they don't explain it very well. So hopefully I'll make a better job. Right, I've said already that we have one model space. This is your working area, and there can be all sorts of stuff in model space. You could have the whole building, plans, sections, elevations, details, the whole thing. But when a building gets relatively big, this becomes a bit unwieldy, and we start splitting it up into plans and elevations into separate .dwgs. But within this single floor plan here, there could be all sorts of information required for different people, and therefore we might generate umpteen layouts to deal with different issues, furniture, electrics, etc. So let's go to layout 1 and see what happens. Okay, so we're leaving model space and we're going to one of our paper spaces. Okay, this is just one of potentially many paper spaces. Right, usually when you go to your layout, you'll actually find that there is another item here. It's called a viewport. Now I've deleted this on purpose because I want to show you how you get one there yourself, rather than just relying on the machine providing it for you. Okay, but before we deal with anything to do with these interesting viewport objects, what we need to do is get the piece of paper that we can see here to the right size. Okay, so what I'm going to say is that I want to create a drawing that's an A3 size. So that's the first thing we set up. So what I'll do here, I'm going to right click layout 1. I'm going to rename it straight away. Okay, I'm going to call this A3 PDF, because that's what the final output will be, an A3 PDF file. Okay, I right click that again. Okay, I have to click off it and then right click it again, and the thing I'm going for is actually just off the screen, which is a bit awkward. I'll maybe just move this up temporarily so you can see what I'm doing. That's better. Okay, Page Setup Manager. Okay, and then I go to Modify, and this looks fairly complicated, but actually it's not too tricky. First thing you do is you choose a device to print to. Now we've said we're going to create a PDF, so we're going to create a file instead of an actual piece of paper, but it's the same process. Okay, so where it says printer or plotter, drop the list down, and I'm going to go for Adobe PDF. Okay, there's other PDF type makers here. We've got DWG to PDF, and you may have a free PDF creator, something like PDF 995 or similar. All do the same job. Okay, we'll go for an Adobe PDF, and it was an A3 that I was wanting, so I look for the A3. Okay, this updated pretty much instantly. Now what I want to plot is the layout. If I was plotting from model space, I might choose window. Okay, but generally it's layout that we choose. The next thing you need to check is that over here it says scale 1:1. This isn't the architectural scale. What this means is that if I have it at 1:1, the resulting printout will be an A3. If this says anything different, then what you thought was going to be an A3 is going to be shrunk, or it's going to be enlarged. So basically this needs to say 1:1. The only time I don't use that is if I'm squeezing a layout onto a smaller piece of paper. So if say the original drawing was an A0 and I want to print it onto an A4, I would use window and select an area, and I would then fit it to the paper. Okay, but usually we're dealing with layout, and this should say 1:1. And this is the thing that catches most people out, where they lose track of what's going on and they end up with a microscopic setup, and it all gets very confusing. So layout 1:1. Okay, we're going to come back to this item in a moment. Okay, so just ignore that for now. This is to do with the final look of the printed output. Okay, everything else is good. Plotting with plot styles, I'll explain what that means later as well, and that the paper orientation will be landscape, so everything's good to go. PDF, A3, layout, 1:1, plot with plot styles, landscape, OK. Then close. So this looks slightly different now. You can see that the margins here are much smaller. The dashed line, if anything's outside of that dashed line, then it won't end up on the PDF. Okay, and because we're printing to a PDF, the margins are really quite narrow. When we're printing to a printing device, a printing machine, then you'll find the margins are a bit bigger. Okay, now what we want to do is add the viewport, and the viewport is like a magic kind of lens. We create the lens and we set a magnification level on the lens, and the magnification level is your architectural scale. So let's create a layer to hold the viewports, because they're quite special objects and they really deserve to have their own layer to control them. So I create a layer name, and I just clicked off that for a second. I'm going to call it viewports. I'm going to make it a color that I don't use for anything else, so I'm going over here to 203, and the line type should really be continuous. Okay, and I'm not going to make it the current layer though. The reason for that is because I'm also going to set the layer to be non-printing. Okay, so I don't want the viewports to print out onto the paper. And if you do this, if you left it printing, you'd actually have kind of boxes around all your various bits of drawings, and it looks pretty childish. Okay, so we take the printing icon off there. Okay, like I say, don't make it current. Okay, we do that, and then we'll create a viewport using the mv command, mv, and you click, let go, move away, and click again. Okay, I'm making a viewport that's about 2/3 the size of the piece of paper. And what happens is that it automatically fills with whatever it finds in model space. Now what I want to do is put that viewport onto layer viewports. So you just click it once, find the word viewports, click the word viewports, press escape. Okay, now the magnification level in here isn't set to anything specific, it's just filled the viewport. So that's what we want to deal with right now. So we double click inside the viewport. Okay, the viewport becomes active. The things that we've noticed in this corner of the screen in model space are here now, like the different different shading settings and these navigation tools. The UCS icon has jumped inside. Okay, and so it's unlocked. We could zoom and do what we want at the moment. The window is unlocked, ready for waiting for us. At the moment, there is a viewport scale or a zoom setting of 0.02579. Now, if you divided 1 by that number, then that would give you an indication of roughly what scale it is. And that would give you an answer around about 500. 1 divided by 0.0025 is around about, actually more like 400 actually, isn't it? It's 400. So we want to try and get this to a nearest big number scale, which will be 1 to 500. So we use this little drop down list and we look for 1 to 500. It's not there because it's not used very often, that scale. So what we would do here is add it to the list. So we click on custom. Okay, I want to add a new scale, and the name of it will be 1 to 500. So this allows you to put a colon in here, that's fine. The properties of this will be that 1 paper unit equals 500 drawing units. And OK. So he's on the list, he's going to be near the top of the list. Here's a bit of a rogue at the top, I'm going to move him down. Push him down to the list because I don't want him near the top of my list. And if we wanted to be tidy, we could put 1 to 500 in its proper place in there. So OK now. Now it hasn't changed yet, we haven't actually chosen it, we just created it and added it to the list. So when we drop the list down now, 1 to 500's there. Now if that at the moment is showing something round about 1 to 400, if I click on 1 to 500, it should shrink. Good. Okay, that viewport is set to 1 to 500 scale on an A3 piece of paper. Double click outside the viewport and then let's bring the viewport in a bit tighter onto the contents. So we click it on its edge, take a corner grip and then reposition that grip. So it's like trimming down a drawing, trimming the edges off a piece of tracing paper. So this piece of tracing paper is floating on top of our piece of white paper. Press escape to deactivate the grips. And let's move it down into the corner of the page. So we're not moving the stuff that's inside, we just move the viewport and everything inside goes with it. So M, return, pick the viewport edge and return, base point anywhere. I don't have ortho on, so I've got free movement, so I can move my little bit of tracing paper around the screen. Get the idea? Let's create another viewport alongside that. And this is the beauty of paper space, isn't it? We can have lots of different drawing scales on the same piece of paper. So we've been working in this little corner office. Let's have a detailed view of that at 1 to 75 scale. We could use this viewport as the basis for it. CP, return, pick the viewport and return. Base point can be anywhere, so you left click and reposition the viewport. Because it's a copy of the viewport, the contents are copied as well. Now let's just resize this, reshape I should say, and let's make it a tall rectangle which is going to be more like the proportion of the shape of that room. Okay, press escape. Then we go into the viewport, we activate the viewport, so you double click, gets the fat edge, UCS icon jumps inside. What we can do is center the view and even zoom in a bit. Okay, well then we need to deal with the scale. we could add the scale onto here. Now I know from setting up this drawing previously, a 1 to 75 is as good as we'll get. 1 to 50 ends up a bit too big. 1 to 75 looks about right. Okay, 1 to 75 isn't on this scale because it's not very used very often. So let's use a slightly different way of getting that scale in here. Use the zoom command instead. So we type this in. So it's Z return and then 1/75 XP. Now I understand the XP stands for exponent, so it's 1/75 of 1. When we press return, we should get some kind of change in the zoom setting here. Just marginal, but it's enough. And look what's happened to the number down here. Okay, it's saying 0.01333 recurring. 1 divided by 75 would give you that number. Okay, compare that to this one. If we double click in here, it's saying 1 to 500. Because we created a named scale, it's showing it as a 1 to 500, whereas here it's just showing it as a number. Either way, they're both to the scales we wanted. Everything's good. Now, to avoid losing position in the viewports and the likes, you can save a view. So let's save the view in this particular viewport. So you use the V command. So you have to be active in the viewport. Remember to not move it. Don't roll your mouse. If you do, you'll lose the scale. So V return. We want to create a new view, and we'll call it Office 75. So it's the office at one scale of 1 to 75. Now you don't have to worry about anything else here apart from this little tick. Take that tick off. And the problem with this thing is if you subsequently create some new layers, they won't show up in the viewport, and that's not really very practical. Okay, so we've given it a name. We'll click OK. It becomes a fully named view now, and we click OK. Now let's test what we've just done by messing this view up. Let's zoom in. Oh no, it's gone all wrong. Number here is terrible. We don't know what scale this should be at, but we can bring back the view. So V return, click Office 75, set current, apply, OK. And it's back the way we had it. So if we had added any notes and the likes around the drawing in Paperspace, it all gets wrecked if you lose the scale inside the viewport. But saving the view gets everything back the way it was. Okay, double click outside to lock the viewports, and they can't be disturbed then. They can still be moved around, but the contents can't be disturbed. Now what we can't see there is our line types. Remember we had this set to be a dashed dot line around the room. This is, as I said, line types are something that AutoCAD doesn't deal with very well. It's up to us to remember a couple of numbers. What the line type scale is in model space and what the line type scale is for Paperspace. So if we do LTS now, to LTS and return, that's the number we have to remember that looks okay in model space. We've got to try a much smaller number for Paperspace. I think 0.1 is going to give us a reasonable result. Okay, now it hasn't changed the drawing there. What we need to do here is force it to reach. Oh, it has changed it. That's just too far away. Okay, that looks a bit too much dashed. Looks not too bad here, but I think we could do with the scale being a bit bigger. So let's try LTS again of 0.25. Yeah, that looks a bit tidier, doesn't it? There's just enough dashes here to get around the room, and certainly in the detail it looks good there. So remember that these are the same. The gaps and the dashes here are the same size. You don't have one setting for one and one the other. You can force lines to have individually different scales, but it gets quite messy, and I probably would avoid it if you can. Okay, but that's done through the properties, change properties tool to do that. So that in a nutshell is how you set the layout up. What we'll do is we'll break off here and restart on. I'll talk you through the line weight issue in the next section. Okay, we'll stop just now.